Good morning and good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants event. My name is Joe Grabowski, and I'll be your host for today. We have had just an awesome September going. I can't believe that it's almost wrapped up. We'll be announcing our October event shortly, and we have an incredible lineup of October events coming up. But this month is not over. In fact, tomorrow we'll be live in the field in Idaho doing some live banding of songbirds and raptors, which is always really cool. So you can head over to the website exploringbytheseat.com to check out those. But today we're taking a little trip to Florida, and I'm excited for the first time to introduce George McKenzie. He's a National Geographic Society award-winning photographer and documentarian from Brooklyn, New York. So his work explores the intersection of wildlife, natural history, cultures, and conservation through virtual storytelling. He is in Florida working with Path of the Panther project as a camera trap technician. So he's overseeing a big network of these camera traps across the Everglades to help document the recovery of the endangered Florida Panther. So let's bring George in live with us right now. Hey, George, how you doing?
I'm great, Joe. Thank you for such an amazing introduction. And I really love the theme song that plays at the beginning.
Excellent. Well, George, it's so great to have you joining us. We have a great group of classrooms who will be on camera with us. We've got more classrooms tuning in via YouTube. They'll send some questions in when the time comes. While you're presenting, I'll whip up a little Kahoot in the background. So I'll share that link with everybody so we can play a little Kahoot today. But George, we're excited to have you. And we're looking forward to diving into your world for a little bit.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, I'm going to let you take over for a bit.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is George McKenzie Jr. from Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. I'm currently 10 months into a 2-year assignment down here in Florida, and I'm a black wildlife photographer. This is me on a camera trap, basically composing and testing the lights to make sure that when the animal walks through, it looks good. And I'll let the slide kind of go and we'll talk about it. So here I am. This is about where I'm from when I started, what I'm passionate about. And it's a beautiful shot of home. And, you know, nice picture of me, not gonna lie. And these are the animals that got me into photography. If you're from New York City, and I know there's a class here from Brooklyn, you tell stories based on what you have access to. And I had a lot of access to pigeons and rats. And I didn't want to show you guys rats, but this is what got me into photography. I did a story for National Geographic where they wanted to document the smartest birds in New York City. And believe it or not, these are the smartest birds in New York City. As New Yorkers, we tend to see them a lot and you kind of overlook them, but they're really very highly intelligent animal, and they can be trained to do various things. So pigeons were, believe it or not, the first drones ever for us humans. So back in, I think it was World War I, pigeons were used to bring film and reconnaissance information from the field back to the base. And for photographers in the field, they would attach film canisters to these pigeons' legs and send them back to the office so that the images could be published. Right now, I'm in Florida. And in Florida, you have a lot of this. Florida, believe it or not, they have black bears in my part of Florida, and they have a ton of these guys, bobcats. And they also have a lot of these. These are the Florida Gators. This is my favorite gator. I call him Big Tommy. As you can see, he looks at me with loving eyes. And this is Path, and the project I'm working on right now is with Path of the Panther. And if you guys have the chance to read this, and if you can't, I'll go through it briefly. So, what is Path of the Panther? As the last big cat surviving in the eastern United States and the state animal of Florida, the panther is an icon of Florida's last wild places. Through impactful storytelling and collaboration with National Geographic Society and a network of partners, Path of the Panther works to inspire the conservation of the land the Florida panther needs to survive. The Florida Wildlife Corridor, which serves both humans and wildlife. And this is a photo taken by my boss, Carlton. It took him about 5 years to get this photo. And that's going into the field every 2 weeks and hoping and praying that everything works properly so we can get this photo done. And this is a female panther crossing a log. Oh, sorry. I gave you guys the wrong number. It took 2 years. My apologies. And these are the animals that exist where I am in Florida. So we have a panther female and a young cub right here. Amazing, highly intelligent bunch of raccoons right here, turkeys, and we have a bunch of white-tailed deer here. And these are newborn Florida panthers. When they're born, they don't look like this. I'll go back. They don't look like their mom right here, and they don't look like their older sibling. They have these darker splotches and these blue eyes that just makes them adorable. So with the Florida Panther, it's an umbrella species. By protecting the panther and its habitats, it needs to survive. We can protect as many other Florida species today. Their population ranges from 120 to about 230 Florida panthers left in the wild. Then you have the black bear that I showed you earlier. So Florida black bears, these are one of the really cool things about the Florida black bear. They're the fastest moving land mammal. They can hit like 30 miles an hour, anywhere from 25 to 30 miles an hour running. And they can climb trees also, just so you know. And this is a wildlife crossing that was built by the Florida Department of Transportation to allow the animals to cross without. So the thing that kills the most panthers now is vehicular traffic on the highways like this one above. And by building a corridor underneath for the panther to cross, a lot of animals use this corridor. So you just don't have the panther, you have black bears crossing, raccoons, coyotes, a lot of them cross under this underpass. And this is it for this presentation. I'm going to show you guys a video, and then I'll open it for questions. So this is kind of how I go to work most days. This is me with my my teacher. She was showing me, she came to visit and she had the camera, so we took it out. I decided to record this, so I'll let it play so you guys can see my daily commute to some of my campsites. And then turn it around and record. Turn it down so you guys don't hear that. But a lot of my camera traps are located in swampy areas. And it's currently the rainy season here in Florida. And this is a 2-minute journey out of like a hour-long ride to get to this camera trap. I think it could use some volume. So don't mind her and I talking in the background.
George, I wonder, do you get stuck often?
I drove into a pond one day and I had to get rescued. So it happens. But I've learned there's certain places you can drive, there's certain places you can't drive.
Where was that creek?
And that was that one. Now I'm going to show you guys another video of me going into the swamp to get do my surface my camera trap. Sorry about that. I keep switching this over.
Ed.
Awesome. I had a videographer with me this day, so
Pass close to the cameras.
that's him directing me.
I'll go to the camera.
So you get to see the unedited version that's not on my social media page. And that's the trigger going off. And before that happened, literally after that, this is me being stuck in the pond. So for everyone who asked a question, I drove into a pond after the film crew left and I was stuck. So this is me being stuck, waiting to be rescued. And then that's it for me. And I am going to open it to questions.
All right. Well, George, maybe before we jump into questions, I've got the Kahoot quiz ready. In a minute, I'm going to share the link so that the students can join in with us. But 2 questions. One came in the chat right away. There's a group in Florida who are joining us. There are some grade 1s. They're in Royal Palm Beach, Florida. They're wondering, where are you in Florida?
Oh, I'm in Central Florida. I am in Venus, which is North Palmdale. And so I don't know if they would know where it is, but it's not too far from Lake Okeechobee.
Okay, I bet they would. Very cool. Well, grade 1s, don't be shy. Let's get a couple questions in the chat. But before we switch over to that, let's jump into our Kahoot. So I'm going to pop a banner up on the screen here. If you go to kahoot.it, this is where you're going to find a spot. It's going to ask you for a PIN number. And I'm going to share that on the screen right now here. Let's see. Let's do that. There we go. Okay, so our PIN number for today is 770-5021. We'll give a couple minutes for a couple classrooms to join, some individual students. If you're lucky enough to have one-to-one tech, you can join right at your desk. If not, no worries. Maybe your teacher can pop it up on the main screen and you can shout out your answers that way. So 20 seconds for each question. There's 4 questions, a mixture of true and false and multiple choice. The quicker you put that right answer in, the more points you're going to get. If you put in an answer super fast, but it's wrong, big goose egg, nothing for you. So you got to take a second, read the question, and do your best to get that right answer in as quickly as you can. So we'll give maybe another 30 seconds to let a few more students get in, a few more classrooms. You can see we've got auto names. George, we've got the classy snail, the legendary octopus, the super chicken. So some nice randomly generated names. Very cool. All right, well, let's jump into our quiz for today. Here we go. Oh, a couple more students squeaking in. Maybe we'll give another second or two. All right, let's go. All right, our first question is a multiple choice. Where is George from? Was it New Jersey, Florida, New York, or Washington? And don't be tricked by where he is right now. Where did George say he's from? Got a few more seconds on the clock. All right, good job, crew. Most went with New York. Let's see what that does to our leaderboard. The Super Chicken is holding down first spot, but it's close. Let's see what happens with our next. We've got a true and false on deck. Pigeons are the smartest birds in New York City. Is that true or is that false? So, George, I mean, it must have been interesting following them around the city and documenting them.
Yeah, it completely was. And when I got approached about it, I couldn't believe that these were the smartest birds in New York City, to be honest.
Yeah. All right. Good job, crew. Let's see what that did to our leaderboard. That is true. The Super Chicken is holding that first spot down, but there was some movement down below. Let's grab another question here. Which animal would you not find in Florida? So I apologize. I left the not out when I was making it. Which animal would you not find in Florida? The black bears, the panthers, the deer, or the moose? Which one would not be found in Florida? All right. Good job, crew. We're not going to find those moose. Here in Canada, where I am, we definitely see them sometimes, especially in Northern Ontario, but they are not that far south. And we've got one more question here. The Super Chicken might hold the lead tape to tape, but let's see. We've got a true and false to wrap things up. There are over 300 Florida Panthers left in the wild. Is that true or is that false? See if we remember what George said about the number of Florida Panthers left in the wild, which, George, I imagine is an estimate. They're so hard to find. They're so secretive that these camera traps are really important for trying to figure out how many there are.
Yes, completely. The camera traps are really used to tell the story of the animal in its natural habitat without us as humans being around. So one of the most amazing things I found about a lot of the animals when I got here and started this project is their sense of awareness. They can smell you and hear you before you even get to where you're going. And oftentimes I don't eat before I go into the field because of the fact that they'll smell the food on my hands. And then the black bears, especially the younger bears, they love to just be inquisitive, and they'll basically go and try to open my camera trap to see where that meal that I just ate is.
All right. Wow. I'm sure that question was on the student's mind, is do the animals interact with the camera traps? And it sounds like you have to be careful, especially with those scents.
Yes, sir. Sure do.
All right. So that was false. We know there's somewhere around 200 left in the wild. Let's take a look at our leaderboard. Third place, we had the Dandy Rabbit. In second place, the Prairie Deer. And in first place, shout out to the Super Chicken, held that top spot and would not let go. All right, very cool. Well, let's come back from that screen share and let's get in a little Q&A action here. So let me just take that out. There we go. Okay. If you're tuning in via YouTube, use that chat and fire in some questions for us. We'll work some of those in. But let's start visiting our classrooms. I see our first group we're going to jump in and visit is, I think see someone waving at the camera. They're in Sterling, Virginia. Let's bring them into the call here. All right. Hey, Virginia, how we doing?
All right, ask your question. Introduce yourself.
My name is Haley, and my question is, if you're in the swamps, what would happen if you dropped your camera?
It would get wet, and then I'd have to dry it off, and I'd spend probably an extra hour waiting for it to dry. So I'm really careful about where I put my camera and my equipment, and I'll show you something real fast. So this is what my camera trap looks like without a camera or lens in it. So this is what protects it from the elements. So it's this really big box that's tied down to a tripod, so I don't drop it.
Thank you.
All right. Well, if you have a second question, feel free to jump in, or we can come back your way in a few minutes.
Hi, I'm Noelle, and my question is, in New York, do the pigeons like grow up quickly?
Well, the reason that you don't see baby pigeons in New York City is because their mother and dad really work well at protecting them and feeding them. So you kind of see a full-fledged pigeon when it's time for them to leave the nest and go out and find food and fly around. So you
Thank
never
you.
really see baby pigeons. You're welcome, Noelle.
All right. Well, we're going to come back your way and see if you have a couple more questions in a few minutes. I see a few here on YouTube, so let's work one in, and then we'll grab another camera classroom. Oh, this will be a tough one. This one is from Miss Waldron's group, and they're wondering, they're at, where are they? They're in Ontario. They're wondering, how many photos do you think you've taken of animals?
Ooh, over 30,000, and then I have to sit at my desk and go through each picture one by one. So I spend a lot of time looking at pictures, critiquing it, and seeing where I can do better.
Yeah. All right. So I imagine you've got hard drives where you're just storing tons and tons of pictures.
Yes, I do. Tons and tons of hard drives. So my office gets really hot sometimes.
All right. Let's grab a camera classroom here. Let's see. I think this is Mr. Stevenson's group, but they'll correct me if I'm wrong. Let me bring them in. How are we doing today? Oh, they're diving.
They see themselves. They're diving. Yeah, Mr. Blake's class, Royal Orchard in Brampton, Ontario. You got a question here?
I wanna ask. How can like we as in like humans, like every human, help the panthers like repopulate?
You have to be more conscious of how fast we drive down the road, especially in open wilderness areas. And we have to be conscious of overdevelopment in wild spaces also. So those are two easy steps.
So George, there's a large part of this project is building a wildlife corridor that stretches across a large portion of Florida. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the wildlife corridor basically starts down in the Keys and goes all the way up to Tallahassee. So the Keys is the southernmost point of Florida, and Tallahassee is the northernmost point. And the corridor is meant to connect all that land and space in Florida so that wildlife can have a place to be wild and be in nature and avoid human animal conflict, because the biggest difference is anybody here that's on this call can go to urgent care and the animals can't, so it's indicative on us as humans to be more conscious of how we interact in wild spaces with animals and give them room.
All right. Brampton, do you have another question for us?
I think you did, or maybe.
What's your favorite animal that you've taken a picture of?
My favorite animal, believe it or not, is the Florida black bear, because they have constantly blown my mind and changed my perceptions of them. Like, I didn't know that bears could climb trees. They can run that fast. So in seeing all of that, it's definitely enamored them to me, and I'm a fan. What can I say? Oh, and hi, Brampton.
Wait, no, I have one more question that I just.
Yes, go for it.
So the question is, what do you think, like in an ecosystem, what do you think makes an animal in an ecosystem succeed and like do good?
Well, so I'll put it to you this way. It's a great question, right? We all live in the same house, but we all have different views, right? So as humans, we're only seeing this part that we're open to. The animal sees a different part, and we all have to survive. unfortunately, a lot of humans are under the impression that we need the animals, and well, let me rephrase that we don't need the animals. And what it really comes down to is every animal, we need them in order for us to exist, from the mosquitoes to the moose. We need them. Without them, we don't survive.
Mosquitoes are actually pretty unnecessary.
They actually are necessary.
But they are, because the things that attract mosquitoes to you is the fact that your body temperature mixed with the natural smells that all of our bodies produce, right? If you ever look at mosquitoes, they never fly directly at you. They're always navigating left, right, up and down because the temperature fluctuates. And when your body temperature, the smell, and the heat that your body produces all match, that's when they know they have like a food source. Otherwise, they wouldn't do anything. They wouldn't bite you.
Yeah, and I think, even though we don't love what they do, they are still a food source for a lot of different animals. So they play a really important role in the ecosystem, even though we don't love how they get their source of nourishment. All right, good questions. Okay, let's grab another one here from YouTube. We've got our class in Florida. They would like to know how old can panthers be? How long can they live?
Panthers can live for anywhere about 12 to 15 years. So, that's a really long time in the animal world. And they live to reproduce, right? And to create offsprings. So that's one of the things that I find really interesting.
All right. This is from a class in Kansas, and they're wondering about the markings on panthers. So like a leopard, you can look at the spot pattern and tell individuals. Is there a way that you can kind of see individual panthers in the images that are collected?
So you can tell. So the males tend to be a lot more bulky, and the females are a lot slender. They, unfortunately, in their evolution, they didn't retain that big roar that like a lion or a tiger has. So because of that, they tend to get overlooked. But you can tell because when you look at their paw prints that they leave, unlike other cats, they don't walk with their, I guess you could say, their fingernails out. So there's no really identifying feature other than the male panther tends to have a black spot on the end of his tail, and the female panther doesn't.
Yeah. But what about like individual ones? Maybe a notch out of their ear, or
so yes. So we have what we found is that in an effort to help them grow and spread is they get tagged and get a collar by the Florida Wildlife Services. And so you'll have some of them that, like you said, we have one called No Airs because he's gotten into a few tangles over territory. So he has like the tip of his ears are gone. And then we have a young female, Sandy, that her mom got killed when she was about 6 months old. So she has a very like unique kind of walk because she got injured also. So you can tell by, if you see them enough, like I've been able to see them on camera, you can tell the differences, but it's not such a telltale sign to the average person.
Gotcha. All right, let's go back to our crew in Virginia. I think I see someone patiently waiting at the camera.
What is the biggest animal that you've ever caught on camera?
That would be Big Tommy. He was like a 13-foot gator.
Oh, wow.
Very cool.
How did you figure out what did you do to figure out pigeons were that smart?
So I did a lot of research, right? So when you get tasked with an assignment and you need to tell the story, you have to do your research. Basically, like your teachers encourage you to do your homework. It preps you for the actual execution of what you need to do. So I've done a lot of research, and in doing my research, that's where I learned how smart they were.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Great questions. Do you guys want to squeeze in one more? Am I seeing hands there, or is that stretching?
Come on up.
The smart card will pick someone.
I
All
got
right.
it. She's coming.
My name's Michaela, and how did you figure out that you wanted to do animal research and things like that?
Hi, Michaela. Such an awesome question. Thank you. How did I figure it out? I kind of got into this space where every time I did a story on animals, it changed my opinion of the animal or my thought process. So because of that, that's what drove me down this path. And it just keeps changing and it keeps evolving. It challenges everything that I think I know is true and real, and it changes that perception.
Thank you.
No, thank you, Michaela.
All right. Awesome questions. Okay, let's grab another one from YouTube. We're still got a few minutes, so let's work in as many as we can. Okay. Obviously, in Florida, you encounter some dangerous animals. Of course, we know about Big Tom, and black bears can be dangerous too. But in your career so far, what's the most dangerous animal you've interacted with or photographed?
Believe it or not, it's Big Tommy, but not really, because alligators are they're pacifists. They're like basically dogs, but you can't pet them and you can't cuddle them. You have to give them their space. You have to respect their space and remember that we're in their world. They were here before us, and they're really very dangerous, but in the same sense, this is what I chose to do. So I don't worry about it, and I don't kind of get scared of it, because I know that I respect their space and what they're about. So I'm not going to get close enough to put myself in a jeopardized position to interact with a gator.
There we go. Our Florida crew would like to know the location you're in and putting the traps out seems to be maybe have a larger population of the Panthers. If that's true, why is that location such a good spot?
So, man, great question. What I'll say is that the average Panther needs about 200, like the female Panther needs about 150 square miles for her territory. The male Panther needs about 250. And because there are not so many of them, they're always kind of like looking for each other. And that's how we end up with those kind of like the road incidents with them. So yes, it looks pretty big and wide open, but for a Panther, it's nothing. Like it's a minuscule place. So what I end up doing is, before I set up a camera trap, I spend weeks, if not days, scouting, looking for animal tracks, trying to figure out their patterns, because animals tend to stick to patterns. They don't deviate that much unless something is encroaching on them.
All right. And, mentioning the size, the space that they need, that's why that corridor is so important. You
Yep.
can't have all these fragments with no connections. The males especially need to be able to move into different areas, find females, and it's going to be a healthier population of Panthers if they can move around like that.
Yes, 100%.
Awesome. Okay, let's see. Let's squeeze in one more from YouTube, and we can double check with our camera classrooms just to see if they have a final one as well. So George, your career is taking you to different spots, covering different stories. Is there something that you would love to cover in the future, a conservation story or maybe a cultural story?
To be honest, what I would love to do in the future is to be able to take kids from urban environments and introduce them into nature, because for me, the only way it became so important to me is because I got to experience it. And I'd be naive to think that I'm the only person that could change for. So that's what I'd love to do next, and that's what I'm hoping to start on, is to be able to take children from urban environments and bring them out into nature so they can enjoy nature in a safe and secure way and learn and connect.
Yeah, that's awesome, George. Growing up, especially in a huge city like New York City or Brooklyn, I mean, your world is very different. It's a concrete jungle, and you don't get to see the wildlife. And I mean, I've kind of seen it firsthand myself. When youth get to get out into nature and experience it, it can just totally change their outlook, their perspective, their motivation for a future career.
100%. Before I got into wildlife photography, I wanted to be the next great fashion photographer. And then I got into animals and everything changed.
All right. Awesome. I see Waving in Brampton, so we better check in, see if they have another question for us.
You're on mute, Brampton.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I just have to get it again. So the question is, have you ever had like a moment that was like too close to call, where you got too close, or like spooked by an animal?
So the first time I met Big Tommy, it was in my first 60 days in Florida. I was sitting in the passenger seat of a car and we're driving. I'm like, that's interesting. Somebody just burnt a log and just kind of left it on the side of the street as we were driving through the Everglades. And then when we got close, Tommy looked up and I shrieked and jumped into my trainer's seat and she started laughing. But I did shriek. We have a relationship now. We understand each other, and Tommy gives me my space and I give Tommy his respect and space.
All right. Awesome. Okay. Well, let's grab one more from our Virginia crew. I see someone waiting patiently.
How long does it take for one day for a good picture?
Ooh.
How long does it take for a really good picture?
How long? To be honest, it can take. So remember that picture I showed you guys during my presentation of the panther, the female panther crossing over the log? That one took 2 years. Yep. So,
Wow.
Sometimes, your assignments might seem long. Just think about that one picture took 2 years.
Good point. Remember that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure there's sometimes you get lucky and you get a good shot first go. And sometimes,
it takes a long time.
Yeah, very cool. All right. Well, I want to share a link here before we sign off for today. And you can tell me if this is the best one. If students want to explore a little more of the Path of the Panther project, or if there's another one you want me to pop up there, I can pop up there.
No, that's ideal and that's perfect. Feel free to have your teachers, if you guys are doing what you need to do, go click on it and discover a little bit more, dive a little deeper. And by all means, you got questions, ask us questions, send emails, and I'll be more than happy to answer any question.
Awesome. All right. Well, classrooms, camera classrooms, YouTube classrooms, thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you for your awesome questions as always and playing a little Kahoot with us. And George, thank you so much for joining us for your first outing. Oh, I see lots of clapping and cheering here. I better bring in our group in Virginia. There they are. George, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you all for having me. It was such a pleasure, and I hope you all have a great day and a great rest of your semester. Thank you all for taking time out to share with me.
All right. George, thank you so much. Classrooms, thank you so much. We can't wait to see you later in the week and into October. But for now, we're going to sign off for today. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Joe. Bye.